Good evening, all.
You're now live, Chair.
Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of Climate Change Working Group. I'm Joanna Collins, Vice Chair of the Working Group, and I'm going to chair until Anthony McEwen, the Chair, is able to do so. I would like to inform everyone present that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet via the Council's website and will be capable of repeated viewing. The images and sound recording may be used for training purposes within the Council. In order to ensure that the meeting is managed effectively, can everyone please keep to the following guidelines for speaking? Councillors should only use the raise your hand function to request to speak and only speak when invited to do so by the Chair. Please switch off your camera and microphone when not speaking, and remember to set your mobile phone to silent for the duration of the meeting. Any views expressed by any speaker in this meeting are the speaker's own, and they do not necessarily reflect the views of the Council. Please, councillors, be aware that the webcast will continue to be streamed live 20 seconds after we close the meeting. This is due to a time delay in transmitting live. I will now confirm the names of the remaining members of this committee. Councillor Pauline Bell, Councillor Angela Benham, Councillor Jenny Benzer, Councillor Dom Elliott-Starkey, Councillor Simon Evans, Councillor Linda Gruby, Councillor Madeleine Hall, Councillor Ian Huddleston, Councillor Pete Inman, Councillor Pam Reddy, Councillor Jill Scott, Councillor Jean Todd. Thank you. So you've mentioned some apologies already.
I did. We've received apologies from Councillor Benzer and Councillor Inman.
Thank you. And moving on to item 2 of the agenda, declarations of interest. Any disclosable pecuniary interests? No. And other interests? Sorry. Okay, so moving on to minutes of the previous meeting. So can we approve the minutes? Can I have a proposer? Any hands? Simon, proposer, Jean, seconder. Okay. Any matters arising from the minutes not covered in the agenda? No, okay. So moving on.
Chair, Councillor Todd has got her hand up.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I've never done this before, actually, for the council. Jean.
Sorry, it was a
Todd.
legacy hand.
Oh, okay. So moving on, the Merrill Combined Authority funding for social housing. So Andy Garish, I believe you're presenting on this.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. I've not got a copy of the agenda, so how long would you like me to speak for?
Goodness. 10 minutes?
Should we go 10 minutes? Let's see how close we can get to 10 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, if that's not enough, then, you know, we've got 2 hours for this meeting. So if that's not enough, we can carry on.
Okay. No, that's fine. I've got a small presentation for you, if that would be appropriate. But I need to be able to share, and I'm not sure if I've got that facility. We'll try.
Right, so
We'll try.
yes.
How are we doing? Can we see that?
Yes.
That's fine.
Okay. Everyone else? Okay.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Well, the first thing is to say good evening and introduce myself, because I don't recognise any of the faces other than Gillian. I don't recognise any of you. So, but I'm going to plough on. I'm not going to insist on introductions or anything like that. If you speak, I might Google you there. But as far as I'm concerned, my name is Andy Garish. I'm a building surveyor and asset manager. I've been with High Peaks for about several months now, and I acquired this particular project more by miscalculation. I think it was going around the houses. I saw an opportunity to apply for some mayoral funding, and I put in the application and the bid, and was most surprised when it was accepted. And we suddenly found ourselves being given £583,000. So thank you very much to Nottingham for arranging that. But then it was about, well, what are we going to do with it? And I've got together with some of the other guys in the council, Gillian, and also people like Jan Percival, and we've come up with a plan. We will need to top it up. I can give you the financials later. But what we are looking to do, and why we're looking to do it, is that this does offer an exciting opportunity for us, I think, to not only enhance the energy efficiency of the homes in question, but it will also support the council's drive to tackle fuel poverty. And it gives us a platform to assess the measures which could be deliverable across the council's wider portfolio. Equally important is that this could be the start of something much bigger. And it's something that we haven't done it this way before. So I'm going to explain, and it is an update. I stress this project is not complete. It's still very, very much in its nursery stages. But the thinking is that we want it to be a turnkey project. What do I mean by that? So it's literally from inception to completion. We will outsource that function, and everything will be done towards that end. Because stretched resources, limited time, limited budgets, we need to think smart with it. And we've found a number of contractors that would be particularly interested in taking this on for us. What we're going to do is we're going to pick on two particular roads. New Mills. So I've just very quickly run you off a couple of window snips from Google Maps. This is Griffin Close in New Mills, which you can see are all bungalows. And this is New Street in New Mills, where we've got a change of archetype. So these are mainly houses. The reason for picking them is they are older, so they are less energy efficient to start with. But equally, they've all recently had their roofs replaced. And that's important, and I'll come to that when it comes to solar panels and photovoltaic cells. So where does it start? It starts with a PAS 2035 survey. Now, I'm going to assume here, and I don't want to be insulted at all. It may well be that some of you are already sort of technically proficient, or you know something about it. I'm just keen that I shouldn't sort of lose anybody at the early stages. So I'm going to sort of start from square one and assume no prior information or knowledge on the subject. If I am repeating something that you already know, then I apologise in advance. The PAS 2035 survey, I particularly like And I'm going to explain to you in a second what that is about. It's essentially, it's a framework of best practice guidelines as to how you should do the job. It's particularly good because it is standardized, so it's national. It is also very thorough. It's a whole house approach. They miss nothing out. And what I particularly like about it is that there is engagement with the customer right the way through, from the beginning to the end. And that is important, and I'll explain why. So what happens is that we carry out the survey. There is then an assessment carried out of the property and also of the tenant, of the customer, how they use their home, how they occupy it, what they do more of and what they do less of. There is a process then of monitoring that and evaluating it. And there is also a method by which we can evaluate what's likely to happen. And then the final part of it will be the retrofit installers. So this is where I'm going to explain about the PAS. The thing is about it's a survey, and the thing is about it is that for a start you have to have defined specialist roles. So, for example, you would have retrofit assessors that undertake a particular role. There would then be coordinators. There would then be designers, and there would also be advisors who are more sort of frontline. So they would be the liaison point between the council and the tenant and the contractor. The idea is that it establishes a robust process for the actual delivery, and it also measures intended outcomes both before and after the projects. There is an education process involved in this as well, in maximising energy savings from the retrofit works. But there's a lot of customer involvement in terms of what the benefits are for them and how they are to use those particular installations. Because what we do realise is that it is the customer is absolutely central to this. We can put in whatever installations and whatever measures we like, but if the customer does not trust it, does not like it, or does not understand it, it will not be used, and that means that we have failed as project managers. We're going to conduct detailed surveys for the best quality design and end products that we can afford. It minimises the performance gap. So what do we mean by that? The performance gap is what's existing. So, for example, if you take something like loft insulation, then we can put in the thickest layer of loft insulation imaginable. But if that loft insulation is wet as a result of a roof leak, then it will not perform to its maximum capabilities. So that's your energy gap between what it should be doing and what it actually is doing. The residents are given a realistic view of cost savings and a more comfortable, healthy living environment. It emphasises a fabric first approach. So it's prioritising energy efficiency measures like insulation, better windows, before low carbon heating and renewable technology. So it's looking at the fabric first. And it ensures that it's appropriately sized and efficient low carbon heating systems are installed. So this is, as I mentioned earlier, this is about the customer. It's all about the customer. So we need to, the programme of works will be a significant milestone for the residents of the home selected to benefit from these improvement measures. As such, it's critical that they feel engaged and informed and central to the development of the proposals. We will deploy there will be a dedicated retrofit advisor throughout the whole process for them. And that's from the project starting, from pre-assessment stage, and their role will be to drive that resident engagement from the start. This is all included in the PAS 2035 survey. The assessor will work with the council as well so that we can produce a detailed customer journey plan from inception to build. It is a big change to their lives. So how are we going to do that? Split up into 5 stages. So the first stage is community engagement day. And again, this sounds quite exciting, I think, because the plan is that we're going to sort of descend on a public building somewhere in New Mills. I think there is a council, there may be a council room somewhere that we could, but the plan, sorry, I missed that.
Yeah, there's the town hall.
There is a town, oh, fantastic. So yes, the idea will be is that we take over that particular room for the day, and we on appointment we actually arrange for all of the residents to come in, and that there will be the site managers there. They will obviously be ourselves. There will be me. There will be retrofit coordinators, advisors, and we are literally there as a forum to deal with their inquiries and give them the advantages, and also tell them, you know, if there is disadvantages. So, you know, we can be completely honest with it. And it's about engaging them. We can provide them with demonstrations. There was also, I did wonder whether, because it's climate change as well, I think whether we could also have maybe a table for, I think you do waste management. So whether we could include that, whether we could encourage them to bring in their utility bills and see if there is better tariffs that we could organise for them. So we could actually make it a little bit of everything in there, and of course coffee and biscuits. So that's the plan. So what happens then on site is having had the open day, it's then following on from that, we would schedule in one-to-one visits with all of the residents to build that rapport and be able to offer them a tailored support, because it is individual and every house is slightly different. We would do the pre-assessment checks providing a report with revisit for the further guidance. At these visits, we would explain the benefits of energy improvement measures and outline how they will work if taken up. The assessor will also give some energy efficiency advice to help residents manage their energy bills. The PIBI surveys. So, yeah, another abbreviation, isn't it? Stands for pre-installation building inspections. So they are advisor-led communications and appointments with the customers during the survey stage. The results, it's a communication with an outline of the implications for the home and the options available. So that is more for us. It's giving us the full picture. In terms of undertaking the works, starts with a pre-entry survey before the works commence. There will be a 7-day, 3-day, and 1-day countdown to notify the customers. You're talking about daily home visits as well during the works, and there is also, if it's required, a 24/7 helpline. And the advisor support for specific elements. So do they need any help clearing their loft space? Handover and completion. Detailed O&M manuals. Most important, but they've sort of gone high tech. I don't know how many of our splendidly our customers of a splendidly senior age will go be into QR codes, but we've got that facility if they require it. So we can offer demonstration videos. There's in-person live demonstrations, so we'll walk around their home with them and show them how to use the different installs. Most importantly, we can get some feedback from them, so that they can tell us what we've done right and wrong, and further as well, if required, post completion. But we like to sort of follow up 2, 6, and 12 weeks just to make sure that they're happy with everything, because it is, particularly when you're talking about solar panels and air source heat pumps, it's a different way of heating your home, and it doesn't, under the traditional systems, you if you're cold when you go home from work, you can flash heat the house just by turning it on manual for an hour and everything's fine. But air source doesn't work like that. Air source typically takes 3 hours to heat a room. It doesn't pulse heat. It is an ambient arrangement where it will either heat the whole house or it won't heat it at all. So all of this needs explaining, because if they get that wrong, or they don't understand it, or they think that they're going to be immediately warm, then there could be a problem, and you know, that's where the complaints start. Just very quickly, there's some figures there for you, for those interested in the numbers. What that is essentially, this is just for the PAS survey stage. It's not the works. So this is just literally the survey stage. It's expensive. It's £50,000. But I think it's worth it. And what it does is it puts us on a really strong footing, because we know everything that there is to know about the property. And it's normally a prerequisite if you want to get funding for future projects. They will normally say, well, have you done any PAS surveys? So, and it would also rolls out over archetypes as well. So different types. We can use a PAS survey on one property and roll it out over a number.
Okay.
Is that my 10 minutes? Am I good?
But it wasn't 10 minutes, but it was very interesting. Thank you. So, any questions? Anybody?
I've got a
Pauline.
hand. I think there's a hand.
Yes, there are two
Pauline?
questions actually.
Let me unshare.
Pauline?
Hi. Yeah. When are you proposing to do this? When will the proposing to start?
As soon as possible.
Mhm.
And I mean, right, let me be honest. It's not about resources from my side. We've got the money. I've got eager staff keen to get going, but there are a number of processes and systems and policies that are needed to be complied with as part of the council. It's public money, so we've got to get that bit right. That's what could take the time. In an ideal world, what I'm pushing for is March.
Right.
But
That's quite soon.
yes.
Good. Yeah. No, but it all sounds brilliant. But will these homes then be sort of ready for net zero? They'll have the heat pumps. Is that everything done in these homes if it all goes through?
Everything done according to present technology, yes.
Yeah.
There may you always come across problems. So for example, if it's still drafty, you know, how can we seal those gaps? But the counter argument to that is, well, is it a good thing to seal all the drafts? Because if you cut out the ventilation, then you create other problems.
Yeah.
So we've got all but we won't know until we've physically been in there. We think we're good in terms of, have we satisfied present legislation, and have we done everything that we can as a council to make that home energy efficient? The answer is yes.
Yeah, excellent. Right. And the thing, what happens if people don't engage? Does this happen to some people?
That is a really good question, Pauline. Yeah, you're going to get a high refusal rate.
Right.
50% is not uncommon.
Really?
Yeah.
Just because people don't understand change or don't want to change.
Yes, they don't want the disruption. They don't trust it. And particularly I have to say from our older customers, they are more resistant.
Okay.
But that's fine. You know, because what we have is a contingency there for adding additional properties.
Right, good. Yeah. So it'll still be 43.
You will still get 43.
Yeah.
It's just that I mean, geographically, it's better for us just to do a whole street rather than individual properties. But if people refuse, then they absolutely have a right to that, and we will not trouble them further. We will just move on to pastures new.
Okay, thank you.
Right, thank you.
Gillian.
Yeah, thank you. It sounds great. It really does. It's very exciting. Just, I suppose, a similar kind of questions to Pauline's in a way. How will you select the 43 houses? Are there certain kind of criteria like age, whether there's vulnerabilities, etc.? So, first question is, how will the homes be selected or the residents be selected?
At this point, we've got a selection of 4,000 properties because they all need to be made energy efficient. The reason that we have chosen these two particular streets is that they are older properties. Yeah. The SAT rating is down. They're typically D's and E's rather than C's. So and they've recently had their roofs replaced. So if one of the measures is to fit solar panels on the roof. What we don't want to be doing is to fit them onto an old roof. So they've satisfied that criteria, but that's as far as it's got, Gillian, to be honest with you. We haven't gone into it in any depth. We are very much testing the water.
So they're not necessarily council tenants.
Oh, yes, they're all
council tenants. Right?
Yes, they're all council tenants.
And the other question, that they don't need to move out of their homes while this work's being done.
Absolutely not. No.
So there's kind of minimum disruption in that sense. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. We would look to change the heating system, and we would look to fit photovoltaic valves, solar panels, and we would also upgrade their loft insulation. There may be a further requirement to look at things like installing low voltage lighting throughout the home. But again, you're starting to get more and more disruptive. And, you know, at some point they're going to say, no, we don't want any more work doing.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Jean?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Andy. Yes, I'm just wondering, is there a particular date where this money has to be used up by? I'm not absolutely sure about that.
No, that is a really good question, because I'm not sure either. I mean, what I am doing at the moment, because there's remarkably little information coming from Nottingham. It's just like, when would you like the next tranche? But what I am doing is, at the moment, I'm submitting 0 valuations. But the money, my understanding is the money has been ring fenced, and it's going to be used. It's definitely going to be used this financial year. So the way that.
So
your actual budget cost, the total budget cost, total amount, everything included, I've got a budget price of 917,000, of which we're going to get 583,000 from this mayoral funding. So there's a shortfall of something like 334, which I'm going to have to find from somewhere. I've got a couple of ideas as to where it could come from, but that's where, yeah, I've got to go to work and.
Right.
Also, I know obviously that particular street, they're old houses, so they're not going to have any cavity walls. The new street one.
Yeah, they're probably solid construction. They're probably solid wall. However, there could be
plans to put cavity wall insulation in at all.
We wouldn't be able to. Yeah, we wouldn't be able to. We wouldn't be able to put a cavity into a solid. The only way that you can do it is with. You see, we can't even put an external wall insulation on, because you.
Yeah, but the other bungalows, would they have cavity walls?
They probably will.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also, and the internal insulation, none of that. Really. Presumably not, if you don't want to disrupt them.
Well, no, you're moving into sort of very muddy waters there.
Right. And will we have an update on this? Because it seems to me there are lots of detailed questions, and, you know, once you've done the survey, it may provide some answers, the surveys.
I'm more than happy to provide you with an update as you like. I'm hoping that I can sort of maybe get some help and assistance from you in terms of influencing and getting involved. You know, whether there's an opportunity for you to get involved in our engagement day. Or
so councillors might be able to help, especially New Mills councillors.
That would be wonderful, but not to put any pressure on you.
Okay, thank you. So Alan's got a question, and Anthony's here. So Anthony, do you want to take over?
Yep, can do. Thanks, Joanna.
Okay, so Alan, if you
Yeah.
ask
Thank
a
you. Well-
question, and thank you.
Thank you, Joanna. My name is Alan Barrow. I am the councillor for that ward. Hi, along with Ian Huddleston, who is also on this call. So we're it's a 2-seat ward.
It's a pincer movement.
It's a pincer movement, yeah. I'm just concerned. I mean, your comment was that the funding lasts till the end of the year. Is that the calendar year or the financial year? Because of course the financial year finishes next month.
No, when I said it lasts to the end of the year, no, I said that we will use it this financial year, and I can't give you an exact date.
Okay.
That is very dependent upon Nottingham, but the last conversation I had with them was that it's ring fenced and it's ours. I'm fully confident that we can spend that money this financial year.
Good luck.
This is part of a pot of funding that's come as part of the efforts to convince everyone that the mayoral authority is a good idea.
I realise
the expectation is that it'll be the first of a series of pots of funding, and it's been allocated to authorities across the mayoral combined area. So I suspect in terms of deadlines, etc., to a certain extent, whilst we're lacking the figurehead at the top of the mayoral combined authority, I suspect there's likely to be a little less pressure in terms of sort of particular targets or timelines. But obviously, come the Tuesday after the bank holiday in May, whoever is the lucky winner of the mayoral election contest may obviously have more specific targets and ideas in mind as to what approach we need to take.
Okay, fine. I was going to pass another comment, but I'll leave it at that, Anthony. So I'm sure I'll get to know, because my other portfolio is finance with the councils. So I look forward to speaking to you, Andy.
For sure.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Barrow. I've got Gillian and then Jean again.
Just to make a point, the funding, that mayoral combined authority funding, was originally to be spent this year, but they spent so long trying to agree the terms and conditions of it that it has rolled over. But I don't know if there's still a final date on it, but it definitely would be worth checking that, Andy. But thank you.
Thank you, Gillian.
Thanks.
Jean?
Yeah, actually, how many houses are there in those 2 roads? And what happens if we don't get to the 43? Are we going to expand into other roads?
Yes, we are. And in terms of how many houses, we have a complete list of all of council-owned properties in those 2 roads. As to how much take up you get, that's a completely different ballgame. But yes, and we're doing it quite deliberately, because what tends to happen with these projects is that if you cherry pick particular properties or you randomly select them, what then happens is you get phone calls from the neighbours. Why aren't I having that? I wanted that. So by defining the geography and setting, if you like, borders and boundary lines, you're less likely to have your phones light up like a Christmas tree. So it's quite deliberate, and it's also work efficient as well, because the contractors are not moving between different streets.
Jane, if you recall from the previous pot of funding that we had that we were trying to use in the Hope Valley, it did take us quite a while because, as Andy's pointed out, sort of our tenants can and unfortunately do sometimes refuse the measures, even though they will in the end sort of be for their benefit. And we will just try and we will sort of expand the project as need be to make sure we can get as much of the money spent in our neck of the woods rather than elsewhere.
And also the place up on Sterndale Moor, that was difficult too.
Yeah. Ian.
Okay.
Hi, it's just a comment really on Griffin Close. Isn't the last of the bungalows to be built there. The ones on New Street and Jubilee Street were built before Griffin Close, so they're the older ones. New Street was built in the 1930s. So it's really just a comment on the age of them.
Yeah,
and
no,
also,
excellent. Thank you for that.
Also, I remember one old lady who lived on Griffin Close. If you knocked on her door and asked about this, you would have been met with, "I don't want any of that modern stuff."
Yeah. It's you can lead a horse to water.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's their homes and it needs to be respected as such. And they're going to say, look, I just don't want this mess. I'm happy with what I've got.
I'm very happy to go around knocking on doors and asking questions if you want that help.
Ian, you are very welcome to.
Yeah.
And it's a very kind offer. Thank you.
Let me know.
Me too as well.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
And Ian has particular local knowledge of the patch. We've been the post delivery person for quite a considerable number of years.
I mean, the other thing I would like to say is that, I feel that we should be shouting this from the rooftops. It's a good news item. It is going to make a big change to people's lives, and I think, damn it, we should. Why can't we actually go for a couple of awards on this? Why can't we get ourselves on the internet? Why can't we do a corporate video? Why can't we? Yeah, why can't we shout it from the rooftops and say, look, this is what High Peak Council are doing. This is how we're working. This is what we stand for. Let's do it. However, I've already been told to wind my neck in and, not get ahead of myself. But and that engagement day, I think, is really important.
Okay, thanks, Ian. Simon.
Yes, thank you, Andy. I'm a borough councillor in New Mills West, but I also sit on the town council in New Mills, and we're a very cohesive body. And I think perhaps there is some outreach work that can be done via the town council. So offering that assistance to you in that respect as well. So certainly, I will, if with your consent, make an email introduction between yourself and the town council clerk over the next day or so, and perhaps we can have a longer discussion whether there is some work that can be done there as well. That's all to the person who you'll be booking the town hall with.
Thank you very much for that.
Great stuff. Thanks, Simon. Okay, have we got any more questions or comments on this for the moment? We will get some further updates at future meetings as and when sort of the project progresses, and we'll make sure folk, where relevant, have got the local connection so that you can be as involved as you so wish for the project. Nope, I'm not seeing any more hands. So thanks, Andy, for your presentation this evening. We shall move on then to item 5 on the agenda, which is the refill proposals. Gillian.
Hello. So this is something that I've been wanting to do for quite some time, but I kind of just feel we have to get on with it now. What I would like to do for both authorities is set up a refill programme. It does exist already, but it's not very well promoted. I'm just going to share my screen just to show you a few slides. I will send a full pack out, but there's quite a lot of detail in there, but there's some nice images that I just want to share with you. Can you see that?
Yep.
Cool. Okay, so let me just do that. So the Refill is an app on your phone, and it's basically to help you wherever you are in the country and abroad, find local places where you can refill your, thank you David Smith, sending the link, you can refill your water bottle. It does do other things as well, but I think for our purposes we'll probably just stick to water for now. Obviously Buxton, water town. So it's free to use. Businesses can put their own businesses on there, so people will go to that business to fill their water bottle. The statistics show that people tend to spend £2.50 or £5 more in that shop because they've gone in and they feel they have to buy something. So I'm just gonna, if I just move this forward. This just shows you some of the figures of and the types of things that are on there. So there's 345,000 water refill stations already on the app globally, which isn't that many, even when you think of the number of businesses or places just in High Peak. Some are water fountains. I know the Buxton one is on there. I think, Jean, you did that. There's also things like where you can refill your coffee cup, where you can refill lunch boxes, which isn't quite as popular, and then the plastic-free shops, which you've probably come across. So there's lots of different options for businesses to put themselves on there as sort of destinations. So you've probably seen these kind of boards in places. These are like or big organisations. So this is Network Rail, obviously, where they have water filling stations, and they are on the app, so people will know when they're in the station where to go to fill the bottle. I was in Dublin recently, and Guinness had one of these that they called Guinness Clear, which I thought was quite amusing. So they, lots of big businesses are getting in on this. Lots of airports, travel hubs have these. So it's beginning to become quite well known and recognised, and people are looking for it. So I was just going to show you. So these figures that are on the right are the High Peak figures. So we don't really have that many, considering we're an area famed for water in many ways, not just in bottles. I think we could do a lot better with this. Let's ignore David Smith's comment. But what we can do with it is if we create a login and a platform on the system, we can get lots of analysis, we can get quarterly reports, we get lots of marketing tools as well. So people like our environmental health officers, when they go and do inspections, they can advise businesses that this is available. Obviously, businesses have got new legislation with single-use plastic, so this would help that. There's new legislation coming in that they have to have recycle bins, so they'll have to pay for recycling to be removed. So it will help lots of businesses. From a cost of living point of view, obviously free water refills is great. From a health point of view, climate change is going to get hot again. It's good. So and it's also a tool that our community groups can use to engage with people. So it's a bit of a no-brainer, really. So I'm planning to set this up. It costs about £5,000 a year, and we'll get lots of data back. So it's not a major big project, but I think it'd be a really nice engagement tool. And there's lots. I'm not going to go through all this because there's a lot on there, but I will send it round. And there's lots of training and guidance as well that we can link into as members. So that's a very quick whistle-stop tour, and then we can also engage with World Refill Day. There you go. Great. That's it.
Great stuff.
Very
Thanks,
quick.
Gillian. Any comments or questions, anyone?
Excuse me.
No, I'm not seeing. Oh, go on, Jean.
Just going to mention that Transition New Mills did start this a few years ago, and I, as Gillian said, I set a few places up in Buxton on the app, but we didn't get involved with the whole issue. So Pavilion Gardens should be on there, and Pools Cavern and such like, and a Costa Coffee and those sort of people. Okay, thanks.
There are a few, but it's not. I think we could do better, and I think it would be good, for tourism and all that kind of stuff. It ticks lots of boxes, really. So, so yeah, we're hopeful to launch that in the next few months, anyway.
Okay, thanks, Gillian. Joanna, Jean.
How are you planning to engage with businesses? I mean, it sounds like Transition Buxton has already done that, but
yeah. So for those that don't know, Transition Buxton have got plastic-free status for Buxton, so they've engaged with so many businesses, and it's about them removing plastic or single-use plastics from their processes. So it's similar. It's another tool for those businesses, I guess, if they're public-facing. The HSE don't exactly want people rocking up to fill their water bottles, unless they're meant to be there. So yeah, with businesses, obviously we've got environmental health officers that we do inspections to food places. We have the business newsletter that goes out, I think, monthly, that we can put things in. You know, we can obviously use social media. Our regen team, you know, can work with the markets. We also want to work with events. So when we have Eat in the Park here, you know, it'll be much better. I know the Transition Buxton have done wonderful work getting them, you know, the reusable cups. It was okay the first year, but it's beginning to get better every year with that. But if they have water stations, that would be even better, you know. So
yeah.
So there's lots of strings to it. Like I say, I don't think that we would particularly get involved with the other things like the coffee but I think once we start businesses off on it, that's their choice to then, if they want to do that. We don't have to do anything extra for them to do that. So yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Joanna. Thanks, Gillian. Any further comments or questions on this? No, in that case then we shall move on again to item 6, the voluntary adaptation reporting project with DEFRA.
Sorry, me again. So this is a programme which I think is really important. It actually looks at the impacts of climate change, and there already are reporting mechanisms with government, but this is the first time that local authorities have been included in that. So there's now a pilot for local authorities to join and to look at how changes of weather patterns, both in emergency and sort of longer term situations, will impact on our services and our communities. So I've just really scanned through the guidance and things, but I know that Derbyshire County Council are doing it as well, so we'll be able to team up. I'm going to speak to the Peak Park as well to see if they're doing it. But I think it will be a really important activity because it should obviously link into all our risk planning for everything, but also timing wise, hopefully it's so that local plan development, and even if we can consider the some of the elements of it, if we don't have the actual risk assessment by the time the local plan is ready, then at least if we've got that thought process involved, I think that would be really important. So the whole project really is to sort of build our understanding of what the impacts are going to be, help us get prepared, understand, of what we need to do where the pinch points are, that kind of thing. So it's very early days. I think the first report's due in December. So I need to kind of work through the workbook and try and pull in lots of data on that. So it's just to let you know that that's happening. And I personally think it's really important. It's probably more important than the net zero stuff, actually. But there you go, I said it.
Okay, thanks, Gillian. Any comments, questions? Joanna.
Yes, I entirely agree that it's very important, and indeed I think that climate related risk is not really high enough in the sort of risk assessments of the council. But I do have one question, which is about resourcing. I mean, we know that officers are very stretched already. So would it mean that other things went by the board? In other words, what are the opportunity costs of doing this?
I kind of feel the cost of not doing it's probably.
Yeah.
I know that sounds a bit flippant, but I just think this is really important, and I think if we get in on the pilot, we'll be better prepared. And because it's such an opportune time for the local plan, which will be in place for a long time, I kind of feel it takes precedent over a lot of the more peripheral things. Maybe David could answer that question better.
I was going to say, helpfully on the theme of the resources, our head of service has got his hand up.
Yeah, it was less on the on the resources and more, Anthony, just in terms of getting this on the table. That I assume we'll need a report that you need to be happy that we've signed up to it, and we need to just complete that loop as well. So I think we need to bring a paper to you, but we can consider the resources in there. I mean, one of the things we are working on is the climate plans. Next on the agenda, is it, Gillian? I haven't got the agenda up in front of me.
Yeah.
But one of the things that we're working on as a service is that prioritisation and where do we need to start? Where can we have the most impact? So we can certainly build that in. Unless you can say have lots of extra resources that we need to. What's the saying about making fit your cloth fit sort of thing? So yeah, we'll have to prioritize and make sure that we make the most of the opportunities we've got.
Okay, thanks David, thanks Gillian. Any other comments or questions on this? No, in that case then we shall move on to the final visit, I would hope, for this year's annual report, although we'll obviously be starting preparations for the next annual report fairly shortly. Gillian, are you starting us off?
I don't really have much to say. There's not major differences from last time. It's obviously been proofread. Thank you for those who sent comments. There's a few clarifications been put in from comments externally. There are still some comments externally, which a few of us are working on. But that's more to do with their conversation rather than the report, I think, unless you have a different opinion on that.
No, any comments or questions then? Yeah, as I said, sort of for those of you, if you don't feel your comments quite ready for now, we will have another annual report coming before long.
I think the other thing, sorry, just to say, is this will, I think our advice is it will go to the exec rather than full cabinet. Yeah.
Joanna, your hand briefly appeared.
Yes, I put it down again because Gillian hadn't quite finished. Yeah. The only thing is, actually, biodiversity net gain, and this is partly my fault because I did correct it at one point. On page 21, it still says 2023, whereas it came in on Monday. So I think you put January 2024.
Sorry.
So it's 2024
I thought
twice.
I changed that. Right, okay.
Yeah.
I'll change that.
And sort of, definitely related is the plan for nature, which I know is in draft and is fantastic. We saw it last time. I mean, it's so detailed and so interesting. But when is it going to be finalised and launched?
Okay, who wants to come back on that one?
My understanding is that Katie, who you met last time, and Holly from the Wildlife Trust have been working on some consultation questions for community groups, because a lot of the biodiversity groups in particular asked for a consultation, which is absolutely fine. So they're just finalising those now. That'll go out for a few weeks. Hopefully it won't change lots. I'm sure Holly's did a very, very thorough job and thought of absolutely everything. And then what we would like to do is get it approved, and then in the summer we'll have an event where we launch it, but it'll also be a workshop for those community groups to see what strands that they could pick up or what kind of tools we need to look at. Maybe get the CVS along to help with funding bids and that kind of thing. So I think I would say the short answer would be summer, we're hoping. But I've just given you a very much longer answer, sorry.
Okay, thanks Gillian, thanks Joanna. Any other comments or questions? And just to sort of give you a flavour, some of the issues that we're still discussing around the annual report, there's a couple of concerns that there's some measures missing. To a certain extent, the annual report sort of is obviously reflecting work and issues that were picked up during the previous year. And it also sort of needs to pick up that in some cases, we don't necessarily have access to all the information, and particularly in terms of our own housing stock, we only have access to that publicly available information. So one of the issues that we know has been picked up by some partners or supporting groups is particularly around why we don't have sort of usage figures in terms of the housing stock for individual uses of particular properties, and the main reason for that is we obviously don't have access to that information because that's down to each individual tenancy holder. We do have some access to that in terms of sort of the sheltered blocks, but where appropriate, we're trying to sort of mix and match that information. But if members can sort of just have a final look through the annual report, and just in terms of sort of the information that we've got contained with it, we obviously want to make sure that it's a useful document. So as well as sort of reporting back on sort of previous activity, it's also starting to give a steer towards where we need to start looking at future targets, and it'll also start to give us, and I suspect it's something that we'll particularly address in the report for this year, but covering last year. I think we'll also need to start to look at sort of what sort of element of timeage we need to sort of factor in to start to review elements of the plan itself, because in some cases sort of we've obviously been able to get faster progress on some elements of it. In some areas we know that there's particular challenges coming up in terms of what we'll need to do on it, but also particularly as we start to get bits like sort of more longer term sort of funding arrangements through, say, the Mayoral Combined Authority, etc. We'll need to make sure that we've got the setup right for any of those future opportunities to come. So if you could all just have a sort of another read of it to just make sure that we're grasping all the relevant points within it. Okay, there's nothing else on the annual report. We shall move on again.
Sorry, this is the me show, isn't it? This is just an update. I know some of you know this already, but with Katie starting, and it's something I've been meaning to do for quite a long time, is we actually got all the officers and a couple of heads of service together who were, because across the authority, there's lots of different people that do biodiversity, but in different elements. So we have people in parks, we have tree officers, we've got planning, there's obviously Katie and myself and David. So we got everybody locked in a room with lots of biscuits and cups of coffee to try and map out how we can work better together and share learning, understand what each other's doing, so we can signpost and sort of be better than the sum of our parts, if you like. So that was really good. I think there's a kind of clear, there's about 2 or 3 clear lines of programs, if you like, within that. What we're still not clear on, and I know we've touched on this before, is we obviously need to have a more senior group to oversee reporting. If we go for funding, they would need to obviously do that, but we still need to bottom out how we govern it at your level. So we've already, as I understand, said we don't want it as part of this group, so it's kind of deciding, do we set up another group or that? So it's just to float that idea for people to maybe take away and think about how best to do that, because it is an important strand of David. I'm wittering away now, sorry. My lemsip's wearing off now.
No, I think you got
Okay,
it spot
David.
on. Yeah, any ideas and suggestions gratefully received. I think previously we talked about, given that this agenda is so dependent on landowners and others, so we've got the farming community, National Trust, Wildlife Trust, etc., that whether or not we need an outward-facing group, perhaps chaired by the council, but with representatives from those different agencies and organisations, and then also building in the community. I think the other thing we need to make sure is that at county level there will be a group that's being set, or a group is being set up to look at the local nature recovery strategy. One suggestion is that we could just rely on that. I think the concern with that is, unless you are a big enough organisation to have a county footprint, you're not going to be represented. So I think it still leaves that need at High Peak level, but obviously we wouldn't want to replicate what others are doing, and also aware that some organisations would find it difficult to go to every district and borough and probably would prefer to go to a county one. So all of that, I think, will be pulled together. And I suppose going back to Joanna's question, I think the executive's probably April that we've been aiming for, and within there, as well as formally presenting that report for the Plan for Nature for adoption, would be also a recommendation and suggestions of how we govern that going forward. So that's the sort of time period in the process we'd go through. So if anybody has got any views on how that could work best, then please feel free to either email myself, Gillian, or Katie on that, and we'll pull something together. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, David. I suspect we may well be getting some of those views to start us off. I've got Jean, then Gillian.
Well, yeah, some of the things David mentioned that I was going to say, but I did go to the biodiversity. It was basically the launch of the local nature recovery strategy at DCC with Katie, and that was obviously took in all the districts and all the other interested parties, such as Derbyshire Wildlife Trust, and there were a huge number of people there. And you can imagine that the people like Derbyshire Wildlife Trust would find it very difficult to go to all the districts. But even so, it would be rather unwieldy to leave it all to this huge group, I think. So I think, I mean, we used to have a group that met monthly, which included people like Derbyshire Wildlife Trust and the NFU and speakers from DCC, that kind of thing. But personally, I think we could perhaps have something similar, but maybe not quite so often.
Okay, thanks, Jean. I suspect it's a conversation, funny enough, myself and Mike Gledhill, the leader at Staffordshire Moorlands, we met with Peak Park yesterday, and they're obviously, given the nature of the size of the area that Peak Park is looking at, they're effectively going to be having to look at sort of marshalling sort of 6 or 7 of these plans, if not more. So they're sort of in a similar sort of position of just trying to work out how well they'll be able to, not so much staff, because I suspect they'll be doing whatever work they'll be doing anyway, but how they'll be able to interact with the various different authorities that are all working on different strands of these type of plans in the different places. So I suspect sort of we'll need some sort of local body, as you indicated, but I suspect there's going to need to be a bit of work done to sort of just work out how the various sort of groups and organisations are going to sort of slot together into reporting back on this wider plan. Okay, I've got Gillian, then Joanna.
Yeah, thank you. It's also going to be interesting to see how we work together as a council, because we are landowners. And so how well connected are housing, for example, with biodiversity? And are we going to be leading as landowners in this, in terms of if there's land that we own that can be kind of made kind of more biodiverse? Are we going to, is it going to be easy? Are all the different departments talking to each other so that we as landowners can lead the way? Do you see what I'm saying without wanting to be too specific?
Yeah, no, I think, yeah, the challenge is always going to be, although the council are, we have got various pockets of land, in quite a few of those cases, that those various pockets of land are held for specific purposes. So in some cases, it'll be sort of having that slightly wider discussion over whether a particular piece of land is appropriate for use in different ways to what it may well be used now. And I think for some of that will depend on approaches that we're getting from different local groups. Yeah. And I think the project that you're looking at in Hayfield, I think that'll be a good start to that project. So that'll give us a good ground to sort of see what can work at, particularly very small site level. Yeah, and we can see then what works, what doesn't work, and help to sort of give us a bit of a blueprint for other sites that come up.
Great, thank you.
Okay, Joanna?
Yeah, I think actually my main point, which was that I think it has to include external groups, and indeed the sort of culture model might be something to look at. I remember when we talked about culture at communities, you know, there was going to be a sort of advisory group. I guess it'd be a bit more than advisory because you want people to implement stuff. The other thing is, yeah, I mean, it is so complicated trying to do biodiversity because there are so many interactions. So I guess perhaps I'm going into too much detail here, but it would be sort of very much dividing stakeholders up. I mean, I know that Katie's already started looking at stakeholders because even parish and town councils now have a biodiversity duty. I don't know that anyone's going to monitor it or make sure they're actually doing it, but they do, and some of them are trying to look at biodiversity, you know, so there are so many stakeholders. I think it's going to be quite hard to kind of not only think about who you interact with, but who you kind of can't interact with.
Yeah, but I suspect, given that sort of everyone, you know, I suppose the next phase in terms of some of this work is we're going to end up with a very range of targets, and I suspect as part, you know, once to a certain extent, once you've got a number of targets to sort of aim at, to a certain extent, that can help refine some of those conversations to make sure, we're talking to folk that can help us sort of make sure we're able to feed that information back in. And I know we've had a reasonably successful sort of officer member outside partner group that's already been looking at some of this work, and we may just need to sort of, you know, have a look at rebadging or relaunching that, just making sure we've got a good mix of partners involved in it to make sure we can, you know, feed in what we're doing, but also sort of, you know, utilize some of that support that's coming from some of our partners where practical as well.
Yeah, I think that is vital. It'll move things forward very much more quickly in a way, because the partners don't have the same sort of constraints. Well, some of them don't, some of them do probably, but yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okie doke. I can't see any further hands up. And that brings us to the end of this evening's agenda. So for those of you that are lucky, this is probably your one and only meeting this evening. So enjoy the rest of your evening. For those of you that are not and have got other meetings starting relatively shortly, you've probably got time enough to go and have a brew before your next meeting starts. Thank you all for your attendance.